Question 21. Democracy means a system of government in which A. The majority rules, B. Minority rules, C. There is no party system, D. The people rule. What's the correct answer? Let's check. The correct answer is D. The people rule. Now this takes us back to democracy. What is democracy, if I may ask? Democracy is simply defined as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In other words, the people rule. In a democracy, the people rule through their elected representatives. Now this takes us to the types of democracy. We have the direct and indirect democracy. Now, democracy was first practiced in early Greece. Now, the Greeks practiced democracy and they practiced the direct form of democracy. In a direct democracy, everyone meets in a place to decide on matters affecting them. Now, you can all testify that it's almost impossible to practice direct democracy due to peculiarities like population. So, what we have today, especially in Nigeria, is the indirect democracy. In indirect democracy, the people participate in the electoral processes through their elected representatives. So in democracy, the people rule through their elected representatives. Question 22. Separation of powers means the same as A. Presidential system, B. Checks and balances, C. The rule of law, D. Supremacy of the judiciary. What's the correct answer? Give it a try. Okay, let's check. The correct answer is B. Checks and balances. Separation of power is the same as checks and balances. What is separation of power? Now, separation of power is the division of power among the three organs of government. The three organs of government are the executive, the legislature, and judiciary. Now, these powers are separated to prevent abuse or excessive use or misuse of power by an organ of government. So, in separation of power, power is divided amongst the three arms of government. So, separation of power is also called checks and balances. It's the act of one arm of government checking the excesses of the other arm of government. Question 23. A constitution of any country is basically A. A mere pieces of paper, B. A guide to how leaders should do, C. A set of legal instruments, D. A document stating how to acquire power. What do you think the correct answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is C. A set of legal instruments. Now, it's not just a piece of paper, and it doesn't just state how government should do. It goes beyond that. The Constitution also states the rights of the citizens, the power that can be exercised by the organs of government, and what is expected of the government. So it is a set of legal instruments. Question 24. Persons legally qualified to vote for parliamentary candidates form A. Public opinion, B. Political parties, C. The electorate, D. Upper house. What do you think the correct answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is C. The electorate. Who are the electorates? The electorates are people that are allowed to vote in an election. So, in a parliamentary system, candidates or people that are legally qualified to vote are also known as the electorate. Question 25. The principle of separation of powers ensures A. The erosion of elective power, B. That the legislature is supreme, C. The presentation of fundamental liberties of citizens, D. That all the branches of government have equal powers and functions. What do you think the correct answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is D. that all branches of government have equal powers and functions. Now this takes us back to the principle of separation of powers. Remember, separation of powers is the same as checks and balances, and it ensures that all branches of government have the same power and function. It ensures that all branches of government, all the organs of government, which is the executive, the legislature, and judiciary, it ensures they have equal power and function, which means no organ of government should be superior to an organ. Their powers and functions should be equal. That is what separation of power ensures. This takes us to question 26. The primary function of the judiciary is to A. Interpret laws, B. Make laws, C. Regulate behavior, and D. Execute laws. What do you think the answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is A. Interpret laws. Remember, we have three major organs of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The executive is responsible for implementing laws. The legislature, on the other hand, makes laws, while it is the responsibility of the judiciary to interpret the laws made by the legislative arm of government. Question 27. The three well-known national leaders between 1948 and 1966 were A. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and Alhaji Ahmadu Bello. B. Lord Lugard, Sir Otto Richard, and Sir John Macpherson. C. Herbert Macaulay, Ernesto Colley, and Okonkwo Ndem. D. Alhaji Issa Kaita, Dr. K.O. Mbadiwe, and Chief S.L. Akintola. What do you think the correct answer is? Let's see for ourselves. The correct answer is A. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and Alhaji Ahmadu Bello. These three men were prominent in Nigeria from 1948 to 1966. Question 28. Which of the following was an ad hoc revenue allocation commission? A. Ashby Commission, B. Adedeji Commission, C. Udoji Commission, and D. Philipson Commission. What do you think the correct answer is? Well, the correct answer is D. Philipson Commission, and this takes us, you can find this in the fiscal policies. We have the Philipson Commission. In the real sense of it, there is nothing like the Udoji Commission. Question 29. Delegated legislation is legislation A, which is not submitted to Parliament, B, made by judicial tribunals, C, made by a minister acting under an act of Parliament, D, made by local governments, E, made by parastatals. What do you think the correct answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is C, made by a minister acting under an act of Parliament. Now, a minister, who is also an executive, remember I said the executive are responsible for implementing powers, not making laws. But there are instances where executive can make laws based on existing acts of Parliament. In such instances, such power is known as delegated legislation. As the name implies, it is a legislation, it is the power of legislation that is delegated, which means it is vested in an other organ of government as against the organ that is supposed to be responsible for making laws. So in delegated legislation, a minister who is also a member of the executive can make laws based on existing acts of Parliament. Question 30. Before colonial rule, Yoruba traditional rulers were appointed by A. the people acting through their representatives, B. the Ogboni, C. Ifa oracle priests, D. Oduduwa, E. the kingmakers. Let's see what the answer is. The correct answer is E, the kingmakers, and this takes us to pre-colonial rule. In pre-colonial system of the Yorubas, the kingmakers were vested with the responsibility of appointing kings. Question 31. Question 31. The law cadres, a major factor in the constitutional development of the French colonial territories, was introduced in A. 1940, B. 1946, C. 1950, D. 1956, E. 1960. Can you guess what the correct answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is D, which is 1956. Now, question 32. The former western region of Nigeria became internally self-governing in A. 1955, B. 1956, C. 1957, D. 1958, and E. 1959. Can you guess what the correct answer is? Let's see. The correct answer is C. 1957. Question 33. The first Pan-African Conference was held in A. Paris, B. Brussels, C. London, D. New York, E. Manchester. Can you guess what the answer is? The correct answer is C. London. Now, this is a dicey question and you have to be very careful. I would like to differentiate the first Pan-African Conference from the first Pan-African Congress. They are two different things. The Pan-African Conference and the Pan-African Congress. Now, the first Pan-African Congress was held in 1919 in Dubois, Paris. But when we talk about the first Pan-African Conference, it was held in 1900 in London, and it was prior to the Paris Art Exhibition. It was made in that way such that the tourists could attend both events. Now, talking of Pan-African, Pan-African had to do with people from African descent coming together. So the first Pan-African Conference was held in London in 1900, and it is quite different from the first Pan-African Congress held in 1919 in Paris. Question 34. The Public Service Commission is responsible for the appointment of all A. Judges of the High Courts, B. Officials of public operations, C. Civil servants, D. Military personnel, E. University teachers. What do you think the correct answer is? Let's see. Well, the correct answer is C. Civil servants. So the Public Service Commission is vested with the responsibility of recruiting, appointing, and transferring civil servants across the nation. Question 35. Constitutional cases in Nigeria can only be raised in the first instance in A. the Supreme Courts, B. the High Courts, C. Courts of Appeal, D. the Sharia Court of Appeal, E. none of the above. What is the correct answer? Well, the correct answer would be B, which is the High Courts. Remember, we are looking at constitutional cases. For constitutional cases, the first point of report is the High Court. The Supreme Court is the highest. So we would start with the High Court in a constitutional case. Question 36. Which of the following would act for the head of state when he is out of the country? A. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. B. The Chief of Staff, that's the Army. C. The Chief of Staff, Supreme Military Headquarters. D. The Chief of Staff, Air Force. E. The General Officer, Commanding 1st Division. What do you think the correct answer is? Well, the correct answer is C, which is the Chief of Staff, Supreme Military Headquarters. Question 37. To raise funds, local governments can levy A. Import duties, B. Income taxes, C. Excise duties, D. Rates, E. Profit tax. What do you think the correct answer is? Well, let's see. The correct answer is D, rates. Now, rates is the major source of acquiring revenue by the local government. The local government acquires its revenue through rates generated from the people. Question 38. The Economic Commission for Africa is an agency of A, the OAU, B, the Commonwealth, C, the United Nations, D, the OCAM, E, the African Development Bank. What do you think the correct answer is? Well, let's see. The correct answer is C, the United Nations. Now, the Economic Commission for Africa is the regional body of the UNO. It is the regional body of the United Nations. So the correct answer would be the United Nations because it is representing the United Nations at the regional level. Question 39. All members of the newly constituted local government councils in Nigeria were A, directly elected, B, indirectly elected, C, appointed by the state governors, D, appointed by the head of states, E, none of the above. What do you think? Well, let's see the correct answer. The correct answer is A, directly elected. Members of local government councils in Nigeria are directly elected. Question 40. Which of the following is true as a major function of elections? A. Elections serve the purpose of recruitment of leaders to office in a modern state. B. Elections give the people a chance to eliminate opponents who are in office. C. They are means of testing the popularity of politicians. D. Politicians use elections as tools to deceive the populace. E. Elections are a means by which politicians keep themselves in power. What do you think is the correct answer? Let's see. A. And that elections serve the purpose of recruitment of leaders to office in a modern state. And this takes us to election. Now, in election, the citizens, by casting votes, pick their representatives. So the purpose of election is for the recruitment of leaders into government or office in every modern state. Thank you.